Hello, I'm Ed. I'm a senior developer working for the Government Digital Service.
Hello, my name is Alex. Can everyone hear me at the back?
I think it's pretty loud. Cool, so today I'm going to talk about accessibility and how to get the most from your screen reader. But very quickly first, I'm from the Government Digital Service. We're a team at the heart of government building digital public services. We started by building gov.uk, which is the best place to find information and services from government. We get around 12 million visitors every week, and we're home to over 330 departments and agencies. And we've done that by relentlessly focusing on user needs, not government needs. And be that the need to renew or update a UK passport so you can travel abroad, through to information on running a limited company and what that entails. And we also host all the departments and agencies web pages, so you can find information about the departments and agencies of government and the services they provide. So information about applying for your driving license, for example. And we also host some other more bespoke information, like reporting treasure, which, by the way, if you find any treasure, if you don't report it, you could end up in jail for 3 months. So make sure you report any treasure you find. And we also host information like applying for a blue badge. And a blue badge, for those that don't know, is a way to let people with disabilities or less mobile people park closer to places they might need to attend, closer to attractions and things. And through to information like financial help if you're disabled. And it's because of these kind of pages we're uniquely aware that gov.uk really should work for everyone, because these people need to get this information and they may not be the most skilled or able users. Which means caring about things like color contrast. Around 10% of people have color blindness. It's mostly a male problem. 9.5% of the 10% are all male people. So while yellow on grey might look really cool, it's really hard for lots of people to read that. So before we get started, how many of you people use Apple products regularly? A Mac or a phone or a... So it's quite a few of you. How many of you have ever used the screen reader on your device? So all Apple products come with screen readers built in. VoiceOver comes on OS X and iOS. But even if you're not, if you're using Windows or GNOME, there are free screen readers out there for you to use, which you can just download and install. So the talk today is going to be split into two halves. The first half is on developing a feature for gov.uk, and the second half will be on general learnings around accessibility. So let's get started looking at the feature. The pages that I showed earlier, to get to those, we have this sitemap-like hierarchy of links to let you browse down to those bits of information. And you get there from these links on the home page. And we kept on seeing users get really stuck and confused trying to find those links, trying to find the information they needed to find. They'd drill down and get stuck and lost in a dead end and not know how to get back out. So one of my colleagues, Mark Currell, prototyped what a new and improved navigation structure might look like, how we might be able to get users down to the links they needed to find without getting lost and frustrated. And we put this in front of some users. We did some user research on it. And we had a look at how those users interact with it, and we slowly made improvements and tweaked it in the lab. So let's have a quick look at how that prototype worked. So you land on a second page, and you can browse down and slowly drill down in a column-like view to get to the links further down the page. And then if you decide that section's not for you, you can always go back up and try again and start around the tree. And it worked really well, and we decided at this point that this was probably good enough to replace what was currently there. Users were having more success with this new structure than we were with the old one. So the time came to convert this prototype into a real thing which we could actually put on the website. And the most important thing if you're thinking about accessibility and how to make pages accessible really is start with HTML. I can't stress it enough. People very often get very excited and start jumping into writing their controller code, start writing the back-end programming code before they've started doing the HTML. But unless you start with the HTML, you're probably not thinking about the content which you actually want to convey to your users, and that will just be a result of what was easiest for the controllers that you put in place. So I went back to the design and I sat down and I looked at this and I was like, well, how can I mark this up? What's the best, perfect, most beautiful semantic markup I could possibly use for this page? I sat there and I looked at it and I was like, it looks a bit like a tree. It's like a nested list of lists. They're all nested inside each other and they can all just open and close and collapse and show what's inside. So I went to my text editor and I quickly mocked that out. And I was like, right, let's build the markup. Let's think of the markup. And this is what I came out with, something that looks similar to this. And I started thinking about it more, and I was like, well, how's this markup going to work when you start browsing around? How are they going to open and close? And it quickly became obvious this is going to be a complete pain in the ass of style, because you can't easily position things on the page and pull them out and put them next to each other, and it was going to be too much effort to try and style. So I was like, yeah, it's not going to work. So I went back to the design, and I had another look. And I looked at what Mark had done, like how had Mark built his prototype. Now, when building a prototype, you don't have the same constraints which you do when you're building production code. So what Mark had actually done was just use some display table cells to make it look like it's working, but give the elements all table cell-esque properties, which was great, but that wasn't supported in the browsers I had to support going to production. But I could steal his approach. His approach was to have elements effectively floated next to each other, although his were magically sized using tables. And I was like, yeah, I could do that. I could steal this approach, so that's what I did. I put the two divs, the first one being the first column, the second one being the second column, and I was like, yeah, this could work. This will be easy to style. And the second, and probably the most important message to take away from the talk today, is that like any accessibility you try and do, the only way to really test it is to listen to it. So let's have a listen to see what that markup would look like if we browse to it in a screen reader. And let's pretend that we've just navigated to child benefits. We're looking for information on child benefits. And to do this, we're going to need one keyboard shortcut. And that's turning VoiceOver on and off, or your favorite screen reader on and off, which on a Mac is Command F5. And by default, screen readers tend to read out the entire contents of your web page when you navigate to them. So if you navigate to a page, the screen reader will go, right, I'll tell you all about this page, and start reading you the contents of the page. So this is what happens when you browse to this page.
gov.uk. List 6 items. Bullet benefits. Bullet births, deaths, marriages, and care. Bullet business and self-employed. Bullet citizenship and living in the UK. Bullet crime, justice and the law. Bullet disabled people. Heading level 1, benefits. List.
That's a bit fast, isn't it? So that's actually the speed that I asked my accessibility consultant how fast she has her screen reader, and she was like, well, this is how fast I have it. And it's like, I can't actually understand a word it's saying anymore. Like, if I try really hard and I read text ahead of time, I can actually work out what it's saying, but it's too fast for me. So let's slow it down and see what happens at a speed I can actually understand.
gov.uk. List 6 items. Bullet benefits. Bullet births, deaths, marriages and care. Bullet business and self-employed. Bullet citizenship and living in the UK. Bullet crime, justice and the law. Bullet disabled people. Heading level 1, benefits. List 4 items. Bullet benefits entitlement. Bullet benefits for families. Bullet carers and disability benefits. Bullet child benefit. Heading level 1, child benefit. List 5 items. Bullet appeal a benefit decision. Bullet child benefit complaints. Bullet child benefit for children in hospital or care. Bullet child benefit if a child or parent dies. Bullet child benefit if you leave the UK.
Says, that's great. Like, it's reading out the content, but it's not quite right. We've just navigated to that page looking for child benefit information, and we've had to go past acres of content before we even got there. Like, the first thing in your markup really needs to be the thing that the person's aiming to get to on that page. You kind of, by putting lots of extra gumph at the top, we're just going to sit there and wait and listen, and it's like, and then you come back, you change to a different link, and you come back, and it's like, it's still this is the page I was just on, it's not the new page. So that wasn't going to work. So what I could do instead was just spin the divs around. So instead of having the left-hand column first in the markup, we just have the left-hand column last in the markup. We'd have to change the floats around so like it's floating right rather than floating left, and put some margins around the place to make it so it looks like it's all floating left. But we could do that. That wasn't too hard. But now the right content will be on the page right at the top when the user arrives on that page. And that's how it works. That's what it's like on production at the moment. So let's just have a quick listen to how that now sounds.
Visited link, gov.uk. Search. Search, edit text. Search button. Visited link, home. Heading level 1, benefits. A2, list 8 items. Visited link. Benefits entitlement when and how benefit payments are made. Benefits advisor and benefit fraud. Visited link. Benefits for families includes child trust funds, child care and the Sure Start maternity grant. Visited link. Carers and disability benefits includes disability living allowance, carers allowance and employment and support allowance. Visited link. Child benefit information about eligibility, claiming and when child benefit stops. Link. Death and benefits includes widowed parents.
So that's great. That's now reading out exactly what you came to this page to try and find out. We've came to this page to find out about benefits, and it's reading the first thing as you get there is all about benefits. Cool, so that's the markup nailed. Pretty happy with that markup. Now let's look at how we could add some JavaScript and how we could try and make this page, instead of just reloading a new page every time you try and navigate around, start loading in the columns asynchronously. Now, the thing to the spec that everyone will point you to if you talk about accessibility and trying to add accessibility to dynamic pages is the ARIA spec, or the Accessible Rich Internet Application spec. And the ARIA specification specifies how to increase the accessibility of web pages, in particular dynamic content and user interface components delivered with AJAX, HTML, JavaScript, and related technologies. Which sounds really complicated. In reality, it's a collection of attributes which you can add onto your markup. These are the ones that are available to all elements in the DOM. Some of the interesting ones perhaps are ARIA Hidden, which lets you specify when content that is on the page, which is purely presentational, so shouldn't be read out to screen readers or announced in any assistive tech. And the other one, ARIA Invalid, which lets you state when an input box has a validation error, for example. So assistive tech will know that that input has validation errors. And the one that we're really interested in, though, is the ARIA Live attribute. What ARIA Live does is ARIA Live lets you segment on a page and tell assistive tech to pay attention to when the contents of this element changes. And when the content of this element changes, read out the new content of this element. Now, ARIA Live has three states, off, polite, or assertive. Off is the default. That's what it is on all elements by default. And the two other ones are polite and assertive. Polite says, when I've finished doing what I'm currently doing, no, when you've finished doing what you're currently doing, can you then announce this content in this element if it's changed? And assertive says, stop whatever you're doing and read this new content out immediately. Now, being British, I always go polite, but it's nice to know that assertive is there if you want to. Now, ARIA Live is really very handily joined up with ARIA Busy. And what ARIA Busy lets you do is ARIA Busy says, lets you go, I'm asynchronously loading different elements into this new element. So I'm currently updating this collection of this element. Wait until I've finished doing that, and then you can do the ARIA Live announcement. So if you're asynchronously loading in two different resources to populate an element, you can load them in, and then when they're both loaded, flip ARIA Busy off, and it will let it announce all the content in one go, rather than having a double-step update. So that was cool. So I was like, cool, so I can just put an ARIA Live around everything, and it will read out the new content when it arrives. The screeners will know what's going on. Everyone will be happy. We can go to the pub. But it's not quite that great, because, for example, if you're on this page, and you browse, and you click a link, and you click Benefits for Families, the screen reader will then go, Benefits for Families, A to Z, apply for free school meals, benefits calculator, care to learn, carers credit, child trust fund, childcare grant, childcare and tax. And it carries out reading the entire column. It just wants to read everything in that ARIA Live, because you've just added this content to the ARIA Live. And when you add content, it tries to read out the entire contents of that thing. So it wasn't quite going to work. And we ran into this previously on WK, on another page where we tried to use ARIA Live. This is one of our search pages, and this lets you filter documents based on facets. So you can choose to just see the criminal cartels, competition and market authority cases. And we put an ARIA Live around the entire search results here. And when we dynamically updated them, it was, again, reading out the entire list of stuff. And one of my colleagues, Alice Bartlett, wrote a really nice blog post on how we got around that situation and what we did in that one. But the crux of it is that ARIA Live is really best used for status messages and notifications. It's really not ideal for telling you the entire contents of a thing. Like, get it to tell you that there are now 400 results, sure, but don't read out those 400 results. So I couldn't use ARIA Live on this, so that's gone. So what could I do instead? How could we make this page accessible for screen readers and let them know that new content had been added to the page? So instead of using ARIA Live, we could instead just send focus to the right element. We've added this new element onto the page, and if you send focus to an element, the screen reader's focus will also change, and it will read out the newly focused element. So in our situation, we could just send focus to the new header. The new header is the first thing in that column, so you click benefits for families, and it will now read out header 1, benefits for families. And it lets the screen reader user then start navigating again where they were, and they can now browse around this new list that's just appeared. And to do that, it's quite easy. You just call something like header1 focus in jQuery. There's a little gotcha whereby you can't send focus to elements which aren't interactable. So you first have to make any element that you want to send focus to interactable. And the easy way to do that is to add a tab index onto it. A tab index lets any element become interactable. But the problem with adding tab index of 0 is it means that any keyboard user can then tab to that element. And we don't really want that. We don't want anyone to be able to tab to this, because there isn't any interaction on it. It's just going to receive interaction. And for those situations, you could just use a tab index of -1. And tab index of -1 says to the browser, this element can receive interaction, but we should never let a user tab to it itself. So that's what we did. And let's have a quick listen to how that works then.
Benefits, gov.uk HTML content. Internal link, skip to main content. Visited link, gov.uk. Search. Search edit text. Search button. Visited link, home. Heading level 1, benefits. A2. List 8 items. Link, benefits entitlement when and how benefit payments are made, benefits advisor and benefit fraud. Visited link, benefits for families includes child trust funds, child care and the Sure Start maternity grant. Visited link, carers and disability benefits includes disability living allowance, carers allowance and employment and support allowance. Link, heading level 1, child benefit.
Cool, so now when you click on a link, it takes you straight to the new content that's been added onto that page. But kind of annoyingly, it stops reading at that point. Once you start interacting with the page, the screen reader decides that it doesn't need to continue reading the entire page and kind of just leaves you there stranded. And currently, we don't know of any other shortcuts. So let's add a shortcut to our tool belt, which is continue reading, which is the voice of a key plus A. Now, if you're using VoiceOver, the voice of a key is the control and option key together. It's always just referred to as the voice of a key, though, and other screen readers have their own unique key. So if we push continue reading, it should carry on reading for us. So let's see what that happens.
Heading level 1, child benefit. A2. List 19 items. Link, appeal a benefit decision. Link, child benefit complaints. Visited link, child benefit for children in hospital or care. Link, child benefit if a child or parent dies.
So that's great. So now we've got it started reading again, and it will carry on going through the page. But what happens if it reads out the thing that you want, and then it's gone on to the next one before you get a chance to click the thing that you just scrolled past? Now, helpfully, the screen readers are much more advanced than just being able to read out everything to you. And you can actually control where they go. So you can instead start controlling it and telling it to go to the previous and next item. And that's just VoiceOver and left or right. So now we can see if we go past the thing, we're able to go back to it.
Link, benefits entitlement when and how benefit payments are made, benefits advisor and benefit fraud. Press, heading level 1, benefits entitlement. A to Z. List 27 items. Link, appeal a benefit decision. Link, benefit cap. Link, appeal a benefit decision. Link, benefit cap. Link.
So that's cool. So now we can navigate around this page. We're now in control of the screen reader rather than the screen reader just talking at us, which is nice as it was. It's nice to be back in control of our computers. So by using focus rather than using Aria Live, we also inadvertently, but rather nicely, I guess, helped out keyboard-only users. Because with the old approach of using an Aria Live, the keyboard user would have been left in completely the wrong place. Their focus would still have been on the link they just clicked. By sending focus, we're now letting keyboard-only users and people who just tab through pages also continue moving where they wanted to go. So this is a quick video of how it would work with a keyboard-only user. This is someone just tapping, using the tab key and the return key to browse around. And they can get to the bottom, start a new list, go through, click return, and they get sent to the top, and they can continue tabbing where they would expect to be. And using just the tab and the return key is a great baseline zero-level checklist check way of going, is this page going to work for screen readers? Because if you can browse around with just your tab and return key, chances are the screen reader can also navigate around the page and use any interaction that you wanted them to use. Cool, ship it. So that was the feature that was added. That went on to GovUK last year, and we're kind of proud of it. It works pretty well. And it's fully accessible. It works for everyone, even though it's a single-page, dynamically updating JavaScript application. So let's move on to some general accessibility learnings, some things that we've learned while building GovUK. Now, HTML5 enables you to group your items using semantic tags. These are really cool, the header of the tag, the footer tag, the section tag, and the article tag. And they give your page more meaning than they had before with just using divs. And one of the really neat features of them is you can also use the area described by along with your section tags. Because chances are, if you're using a section, your section probably has a title, which means you can then start labeling your sections on the page and going, this section is about this title. And this gives assistive tech loads more information about what's being displayed on that page. And we use this to great effect on the GovUK homepage. So on the homepage, we have a collection of section tags, and each one has its own title, although we actually hide them, so you can't see them. But they've each got their own headings there, so the screen reader should then know exactly what each section is about. So let's have a quick look at how that looks when you're browsing around.
Link, employment and support allowance. End of list. Services and information, with 4 items, region. Departments and policy, with 13 items, region. Services and information, with 4 items, region.
Cool, so now you're navigating around and it's telling you about the regions on the page. It's like, this is a region of this kind of stuff. And it lets you just jump straight to the next region if you're not interested in that stuff. But how do you get in there? How do you...
You are currently on a region inside of HTML content. To interact with items in this group, press Control, Option, Shift, down arrow.
One of the great things about screen readers is they get quite bored if you leave them sitting there for too long, and they start interrupting you and telling you what they're currently looking at and how you can interact with that element. So in this case, to move into a region, we just have to use the Control option, which is the voice of a key, Shift down.
4 items interact with services and information, with 4 items, region. 4 items heading level 2, services and information, clickable. List 5 items. Heading level 3 link, benefits. Includes tax credits, eligibility and appeals, click. Heading level 3 link, births, deaths, marriages and care. Parenting, civil partnerships, divorce and lasting power of attorney, clickable. Heading level 3 link, business and self-employed.
Cool, so now we're stuck in this region though. How do we get back out of the region? Well, that's just the same. It's just the same voiceover shift, except instead of down, it's up, which lets you leave the region again.
Stop interacting with services and information, with 4 items, region. Departments and policy, with 13 items, region.
So that really lets you jump around pages a lot quicker and give screen readers and accessive tech a lot more information about what it is that's on a given page. So we just add those to our quick keyboard cheat sheets. So let's shift down and shift up to enter and leave regions, respectively. Now, reading entire pages from start to finish often isn't how people use their screen readers, because as we saw at the beginning, it's quite slow. You've got to read through loads of stuff you're probably not interested in, especially on sites with lots of large nav blocks at the top and lots of adverts. So that's often not how screen reader users use their screen readers. Instead, they can browse around by headings and links and regions and jump to content a lot quicker, and they can actually drive their screen reader. So to do this in VoiceOver, you need the rotor window, which to get to is the voice of a key plus U. So let's look at an example. We're going to use this page for example. This is some guidance we have in GovUK on pet cemeteries, where you can build them and how to register them. Now, we're actually really interested in registering our pet cemetery, which that information's halfway down the page. It's quite a lot of content to get through before you get there. So let's look at how we might use the rotor window to get there a lot quicker.
Heading level 1, pet cemeteries, where you can build them and how to register.
Cool, so we've pushed the shortcut to get the rotor window up.
Links, 74 items.
So there's 74 links on this page. So let's see if we can find one about registering our pet cemetery.
Skip to main content. gov.uk. Departments, worldwide, how government works. Get involved. Policies, publications, consultations, statistics, announcements.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything about registering pet cemeteries. In fact, we're just going through the navigation links, which is kind of annoying. So let's instead look at the headings on the page and see if we can find registering our pet cemetery there.
Headings, 14 items.
And one of the interesting things to note here is the numbers next to the headings. Those are the heading levels, the HTML heading levels that we're using on those things. So it's also a great reminder that you really need to be careful about using the correct heading levels on your pages, because that really gives screen readers a lot of information about how the hierarchy of the page works and what things are nested inside other things.
1.
Ooh, struggling.
1. Pet cemeteries. 1. Contents. 2. Building your pet cemetery. 2. Where you can build a pet cemetery. 2. How your pet cemetery must be built. 2. Registering your pet cemetery. Heading Level 2. Registering your pet cemetery. Heading Level 2. Registering your pet cemetery. To start operating as a pet cemetery, you must register your site with Animal and Plant Health Agency, APHA.
Oh, so you need to register your pet cemetery before you can actually start one. So that's interesting. One thing that we learned, which isn't really documented anywhere, and I'm hasten to I'm not entirely sure it's defined, so it may change in the future, but some ARIA properties tend to need to exist at page load. With ARIA Live, for example, we found that if the ARIA Live was not present on page render, the screen reader and the assistive tech was never informed about it. So it never found out that there was a live region on the page which it should be watching. And like I say, I'm not entirely sure that will be like that forever. It might change. And it's one of those things where you really need to test these things in screen readers to see how they perform, because just adding ARIA to the page might not actually work, and it might not help anyone. One of the other things I found, and I discovered quite a lot when I was first using my screen reader, was that it's very easy to try and add more markup onto a page and try and add and shovel more semantics onto a page and make the page better. For example, this is how I used to mark up a form. It's a simple, like, your name, your email form. And I used to think this was great. Like, we have effectively a list of fields, right? So we'll put the label and the input in each list item. What this actually means for screen readers and for other tech is there's a lot of verbosity when you try and read this thing, because it starts announcing that there's a list of 4 things. It starts announcing that you're in each list item, and you're just trying to get between the form fields. And actually, form fields have all the semantics they need without that. You take just the inputs and the labels, and it already tells you how they're connected. This label is for this input. This label is for this input. It doesn't need extra markup coupling those together. It works just fine without them. And there's many situations like that where I tried to add extra markup because it seemed like the right thing to do, but actually quite often I found that less markup was better. Now, we focused on JAWS a lot. We focused on VoiceOver a lot in this talk. What about a different screen reader? So let's have a quick look at how the same couple of pages might look if we're using JAWS and how they might work. So this is the CoffeeK homepage, and we're just going to start loading it up with JAWS.
Welcome to gov.uk. Page has 7 regions, 28 headings, and 79 links.
So one of the really fun things about JAWS is when you arrive on a page, it starts telling you about contextual information about how you might want to navigate around that page. So it tells you about the regions and the links and the headings when you first arrive there, which then gives screen reader users more context as to how they might want to attack this page. Like, are there sufficient headings I could probably navigate around using headings, or am I better off going region by region?
Welcome to gov.uk. Same page link. Skip to main content. Gov.uk uses cookies to make the site simpler. Link. Find out more about cookies. Banner link. Gov.uk banner and main region heading level 1. Welcome to Gov.uk, the best place to find government services and information. Simpler, clearer, faster. Search region. Search Gov.uk. Edit search button. Search region end heading level 2. Popular on Gov.
JAWS reads out a lot of information that isn't there. It's one of the other things I found really startling when I came to JAWS, having only used VoiceOver, is you get so much more contextual information with JAWS. It tells you all about the elements and the regions ending, the regions closing, and a lot more information as it goes, rather than just reading out the contents on the page.
Heading list dialog. Headings list view. Welcome to gov.uk:1, 1 of 28. To move to items, use the arrow keys.
So similar to VoiceOver, which has the rotor window, JAWS has contextual menus as well to let you see the headings or links on a page. This is the headings list. But one of the fun things about JAWS is it's really been honed and optimized for speed and ease of use by screen reader users. So you don't actually need to bring up this headings list when using JAWS. Instead, what you can do is just use the H key, which is a quick key to just let you jump through the headings.
Welcome to gov.uk heading level 1. Popular on gov.uk heading level 2. Services and information heading level 2.
So you can just push H and it will just carry on reading through the headings rather than having to pull up a rotor window, start navigating through the rotor window, and then leave the rotor window. It just goes straight to the headings. And similarly, yeah, you can pull up a list of links.
Links list dialog. Links list view. Skip to main content 1 of 79. To move to items, use the arrow keys.
Yeah, so you get all the links on the page, and you can browse around by links. And it's also a good reminder that it's really important to make sure that your links are quite clear as to where it is they take you and what they do. Links that just say submit or click here, like for anyone that's browsing through the links like this, don't have any idea as to what that's actually doing, where it's actually taking them. So it's really important to make sure that your links really do contain information about the page they're taking you to.
List of 5 items. Heading level 3 link benefits. Includes tax credits, eligibility and appeals. Heading level 3 link births, deaths, marriages and care. Parenting, civil partnerships, divorce and lasting power of attorney. Heading level 3 link business and self-employed. Tools and guidance for businesses.
So what I was doing there is I was using the P shortcut, which is jump through paragraphs of text or blocks of text. Which is quite a fun way of navigating with JAWS. It just lets you browse around the page, reading out each block at a time, and then letting it stop so you can then interact with the thing if you want to. It's one of the ones I kind of wish VoiceOver had, but doesn't. So the big takeaway from today's talk is that it's really, you really should be starting to listen to your website. It's the real only way to actually test your accessibility is by launching your screen reader and actually going through it with it and listening to what the screen reader is giving you, listen to what it's telling you. And also that there's no silver bullet, like the things I found with ARIA Live, where it needs to exist on page load. Like that, it might not be true tomorrow. There might be other new ARIA things which need subtle ways of using them together, which doesn't quite work. And the only real way to test that is to actually listen to your website yourself. So these were the keyboard shortcuts that I used. Those are basically all the ones you need to get by with VoiceOver, which is actually very few, it really is very easy to get around with it. The slides are online at bit.ly.com/devoxaccessibility. And that's me done. Are there any questions?
Are you using a mobile framework? So I've just seen the site and it works on a mobile platform. So how does your accessibility or methodology work with a mobile framework like Bootstrap, for example?
So our site is fully responsive. So it just works on mobile. And so, interestingly, VoiceOver, it also ships on iOS. And you can pull it up, and it works almost the same way. Instead of using keyboard shortcuts, it's all finger gestures. So you've got to use 2 and 3 fingers to swipe and pinch, and it's quite fun to watch. And it's also really interesting that Apple released that when they first released the iPhone. It was like they're going to release a phone with no buttons, but yet it's probably one of the most accessible devices out there. And it's kind of took everyone back a bit when they did it. But it's so the same principles of making sure your headings are clear, making sure everything is there. Just they fall onto mobile. It's the same stuff. Start with the HTML, make sure your foundation is good, and then build and layer on top of that. And screen readers will be able to browse around that just the same, using the same collection of things. Yep.
Do you have any kind of stats of the kind of share of your users that actually use JAWS or VoiceOver?
So, getting stats about screen readers is kind of a fun topic. Because screen readers don't identify themselves and will not identify themselves to the browser. You cannot find out in JavaScript or anything whether the user is using a screen reader. And they do that because they don't, if you've ever been pushed onto like m.twitter.com or like the mobile pared down version, it's like screen reader users don't want to be shoved onto accessible thing and get a really bad experience. They try not to announce themselves at all, and they're kind of invisible as such. Which makes getting stats about them really hard, because you just can't see them. But what you can find out is WebAIM collate every year. Every other year they do a survey of screen reader users, and they do a survey to find out what screen readers people are using, kind of which devices they're using their screen reader on most and stuff. So there are statistics about the popularity share of screen readers, but there's no actual statistics as to how many people use a screen reader relative to your entire user base, unfortunately.
Do you do usability testing with visually impaired people?
Yes, we do. The same way we do, so we do a lot of usability testing. We take GovUK to labs very regularly. In fact, we've got our own lab built in the building now to get people in to use it. And we do tests where we get people who use screen readers and other assistive tech in to come and use their tech, trying to browse our site. And it's really informative and really heartbreaking to watch a lot of the time, because it's very easy for you to accidentally do something and then they just get completely stuck. And they actually can't continue with the thing they're trying to do. I remember one of my, our accessibility consultant once showed us a great video of, I think it was Boots online, where they managed to do something such that the add to cart button you could never get to it with your screen reader. So like you could update the quantity you wanted, but you could never actually add the item to your cart. And it's those kind of things where it's, you just need to get someone in to watch them actually doing it, and it will be so revealing. But yeah, we do have people come in who need to use assistive tech. And we have, our accessibility consultant is blind herself as well, and she provides us with a lot of information as to how it works. Sorry, it's not on that.
What's your prime motivation of testing the website using screen readers?
Prime motivation, because it's the right thing to do. Accessibility, so GovUK unfortunately is bound to test, we have an obligation to be accessible for everyone. But the same way that we try and make sure that our website works in as many browsers as possible, trying to make sure it works for as many people as possible is just a big goal of ours. But also, one of my colleagues says a lot that if you can't describe your content, then the content probably shouldn't exist. And trying to describe content for a screen reader really forces you to focus on, what is this page actually trying to say? What is this page trying to achieve? And it's actually a great mind flow to go through just to try and get you to make sure your page is as good as possible.
Is it to address the disability issue, maybe?
What do you mean?
Like you were saying, one of your...
Do non-disabled people use screen readers? So my colleague actually does as well. He really likes long articles. He'll set his screen reader going, reading it out to him, much like he would an audiobook. So he loads up the article, hits the screen reader going, and then sits back and listens to websites because he can't be able to sit and read them, and he prefers to have someone read them to him. So there are a whole collection of use cases of people using screen readers that aren't necessarily blind. Interestingly, JAWS, when it played through, there was no visuals there to let you know where it was or what it was doing. And that's one of the things. JAWS doesn't have any visual representation for users, whereas VoiceOver, it has that nice big moving focus around. You can see what's currently focused. You can see what it's currently doing. And it gives you the subtitles as to what it's currently reading. So actually, VoiceOver is a much better, you can actually see what's going on. JAWS is quite hard in that respect. To penetrate, because you can't see what it's doing. You don't quite know where its focus is until it starts talking. But yeah, there are some use cases for non-blind people needing, and in the future there could be a whole collection more. One of the really interesting ones is Dragon Dictate, which is a dictation software, which lets you tell the computer what to do. So it's like, click on this link, fill in this input with this thing. And for people with RSI or people that are finding it quite hard to use computers, they can then hook into the same accessibility hooks that we're adding for screen readers to let them do things they need to do. So there are use cases for non-blind people.
So that's quite interesting. You tell the computer what to do. So do you know of any websites that provide such facility of interaction?
What do you mean?
So I speak to a website what to do, and I can
So drag and dictate will it's like an app you install on your computer, so it will then do any website. It's quite cool, especially if you want to not lift your hands up. It's like mind control, except you have to talk. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Have you ever tried the like eye tracking stuff?
We.
See how that works with like sizes. There's like obviously other types of accessibility other than screen readers.
Yeah, we have one of the things we have in our lab is eye tracking, so we can see where people are looking the whole time, which is actually really worrying to watch, because it really highlights a lot of things which we kind of know but we try to ignore, like banner blindness, and where people don't look at blocks of color on web pages. They know to not look at them. They know they're adverts. They look straight past them, and it's kind of disheartening. So it's like that we've recently added a big banner onto a whole collection of our pages, and you take it into the lab and people just like, yeah, I didn't get that. You really could have done with like a big message on the page telling you that, and it's like you looked straight past it. It was there. It's like the video of the gorilla walking through the skateboarders, where it's like, if you're not looking for it, you just look straight past it. Yes, eye tracking is really worrying when you actually see what people are actually looking at. And ignoring left-hand columns just entirely. They're pointless and no one looks in them. Cool. Thank you very much.